Hey everybody. So look, you guys know it is 7:01. I'm like, this is record timing. Hi, my name is Linda Murray Bullock. They call me the business plug. And tonight you have joined another session of the Business Plugs Mixer. In the Business Plugs Mixer, we take people from around the country, around the world who are doing business things and who are enlightening us. Tonight, I am so blessed. I am so blessed to have my guest here tonight. His name is now. See, I messed his name up earlier, and so he said, "Linda, say my name right." So his name is Tiran. His name is Tiran Jackson, and he's going to talk about his experience in the Bahamas. This is all about international. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that you are aware that on Wednesday, if you need a business plan, if you are a business needing a business plan, I am teaching people how to write a successful business plan. I've been doing them almost 30 years, and my clients have gotten money and they've gotten connections, they got investors, they got partners. So that's what we're doing Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I have a 2-hour course on how to write a successful business plan. And so you're going to see that link here, or you can see it on my LinkedIn and my Facebook page. So hello, LinkedIn, and hello, Facebook. I'd like to introduce you to Tiran Jackson, my guest this evening. Hey, Tiran, how are you?
Hey, good evening, Linda, and good evening, everyone out there. How are you all doing this evening?
Well, I think they're doing well. Go ahead and tell him hello if you're watching and share this on your page. Share, share, share. You know, I'm all about the share. So sharing is caring. So share this on your page because you don't want your friends who do travel. If you do international travel on any level, you're going to want them to be paying attention here. So we're going to let him introduce himself, and I'm going to be trying to share his information out on his pages while we do that. So Tyrone, please introduce yourself.
Okay, so just so everyone knows who I am, as Linda said, I am Tiran Jackson. I am the owner, the principal of Reborn Resilient. Reborn Resilient is a platform that I have that I use to help people who are overcoming some type of tragedy or situation get themselves out of a position being stuck in life and being able to move forward. I say all of that to say I'm going to go into the reasons why Reborn Resilient is here and that's my purpose and that's what I do now. Just to give everyone a little bit of background about myself, I worked 18 years as an engineer and graduate of Tennessee State University. And while I was at Tennessee State, I met the woman who ended up being my wife, Maleka Jackson, or at the time, her name was Maleka Grimes. She was born and raised in Chattanooga, so area Linda and a lot of people are familiar with. And we met at TSU, and she went to school actually she went to be a school teacher. And while we were at TSU, we found each other, had a remarkable relationship, and grew closer and closer together as she had already graduated and I was matriculating through school. By the time that I'd gotten out of college, I knew that she was the woman that I wanted to be with. And we had started making plans on what we were going to do with our future together. So as we got out of Tennessee State, we moved to Indiana and lived in Indianapolis for a period of time where she started growing and enhancing her career. She was moving more and more out of the world of being a school teacher because she realized that wasn't where her true passion was, and more so um, she wanted to go down the path of trying to help others. She valued education greatly, but realized that being a teacher wasn't what she ultimately wanted to be. So she had gotten into a business field and then even taking that further, getting into higher education and then human resources. And along those lines, with her career over the course of 15 years, she really had a passion for diversity and inclusion and helping those who weren't getting the right level of attention or opportunity actually get exposed to the right people. So she was focused on bringing more brown and black people to the table where they were actually being considered for executive level jobs. And as I fast forward to a point, let me back up. After about 8 years in Indianapolis, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So that's where I currently reside now. Atlanta's been home for 11 years now, and as I stated, I was an engineer up until the point that my life completely changed forever. And
Wow.
that, yeah, so
Remarkable story. I mean, remarkable. So let me take you to 2018, right? That's when everything changed.
yeah.
And it promising career. She's in her right field that she wants to be in. You're in the field you're in, and your family is beginning to live, settle down, young family in Atlanta, Georgia, ready to do some things and to build life, to do life. And then it's June 2018, and you all are looking forward to going on a trip
Yeah.
to celebrate your 15th anniversary,
Yeah.
right? So take us back to before the trip.
Let me back up a little bit. Um, a year prior, 2017, Maleka had went on a trip where she was actually with some of her best friends. She was a AKA, and some of her closest friends. They actually went on a trip to Mexico, and she got to go and swim with dolphins. And she thought this was her first time doing something along those lines, where she actually got to swim and be close to animals. And she thought, okay, this is something I'd like to continue to do. If I go to March of 2018, we were both planning, looking ahead, and excited about this. Our 15th year wedding anniversary coming up. We genuinely loved each other. We enjoyed being with each other, wanted to spend time and enjoy each other's company. And we were actually excited because we thought this was a milestone. This is definitely one, in this day and age, everybody can't say that they make it to that point. So we
You're
wanted to do
right.
something special, do something that we would remember. And in the midst of trying to determine what we were going to do for our vacation and have that time together, we started looking at different items and activities. And we found that there was this one island in the Bahamas where their main attraction was they had these wild pigs, and you could go swim with the pigs. And
Wow.
going off of what Maleka had did the year before, she was excited to be able to have that adventure and that experience. So in the midst of narrowing down the places that we were going to go and what we were going to do, once we saw that, that made it clear. One, we were going to get to spend the time together, reconnect, and have a couple of days where we were going to be away from our jobs, away from other distractions that might keep us from being able to enjoy one another. And so we were really looking forward to it. And as we started planning up to it, things were getting busy. From that point in March to that point in June, I had been extremely busy with my role. I'd gained more responsibility as my job as an engineering manager for a small company. And
Mm.
Maleka, she actually she was working as an executive for a Fortune 500 company at the time. And about 6 weeks prior, she was promoted in her interim position as the director for the company as far as diversity and inclusion goes. So, right before we were going on this trip, she had, and in the midst of all of this, we were both traveling a lot. So, we have one son. At the time, he was 12. And so, we would have to schedule our travel based on what each other's work schedule looked like, because she was back and forth to Chicago. I was going all over the country. But we wanted to make sure that as we were getting closer and closer to this time for this trip, that we were going to be able to be completely disconnected from everything, that we were going to be able to focus on each other, and that everything was going to be where it needed to be for us to be able to go on this trip and enjoy 5 days together.
Mm.
So with that said, as we were getting closer and closer to that point in time, she had just gotten the call 3 days before the trip that the company that she was working for wanted to go ahead and remove the interim director title and make her the director once we got back from this trip. So as if we didn't have enough to celebrate, we were already happy to be celebrating our 15th anniversary, but she had also gotten the call that they were going to finish the paperwork and do what they needed to after we got back from the vacation.
Wow.
So had a lot to look forward to. As we were getting closer to the trip, we were both very excited. We started to have that feel and that anticipation towards what this trip was going to be. We could see ourselves, we were talking about, spending some time on the beach and just being able to enjoy the beautiful weather and everything that was coming up. So as we were getting closer and closer to that trip, we were We were focused on getting everything in order and together, but we were really looking forward to being able to take off and go and get away for these couple of days.
Mm.
The day before the trip, I actually had our son, and I took him to stay with family in Tennessee because he was going to stay with one of his aunts and uncles while we were going to fly out of Atlanta to the Bahamas and spend our 5 days away. All was great. I can remember us getting him dropped off and then getting back and getting fully packed and ready to wake up that next morning and getting out to the island and being able to start this wonderful adventure where me and my baby were going to spend our time together and enjoy reaching that milestone of 15 years together. So on the day that we arrived, everything was wonderful. We got there, had no problems checking in. The weather was beautiful. The water was gorgeous. We
Mm.
thought we were in paradise. We got to spend some time enjoying ourselves, enjoying everything that we were doing. We got to have some time at the pool, spend some time at the beach. The resort had all of this. We had some delicious food, got to do a couple of fun things, some karaoke, even got to have some fruity drinks. We were having a great time. Everything was wonderful. And towards the end of the second day, we had started talking with the resort and talking with people about this excursion, about being able to leave the resort and actually go on a tour of the island. And as we went on this tour, one of the stops and one of the activities was to go to where these pigs that they have come up to you and you can get in the water and swim and do this, as well as other activities. So we had gotten everything together and settled on the end of that second day for us to wake up that next morning and go and start this adventure. So we were excited as we went to sleep that night, slept through the night. This was what she was looking forward to. Now, don't get me wrong. She was excited about celebrating being married for 15 years with me. That was important too. That was a
Yeah.
big
This is
deal.
like icing on the cake.
Yeah. but she was excited about this day because we were just having a wonderful time in paradise. All was great. We had great things from a professional standpoint to acknowledge and celebrate. We were having a great time together, reconnecting in the midst of, as I stated before, we were so busy before, so it wasn't too often we really had that time to be still
Mm.
and enjoy one another. So all was great. And so on that third day, that morning, we were excited. We got up that morning. Um, at 6:30, we were at the breakfast place on the resort getting breakfast, trying to get us a good meal. Excited. We had our stuff packed for the day. At 8 o'clock, we were standing outside of the resort where we were going to be picked up by a bus, and we were the first couple there. There were a couple other couples who were going on this trip too, but we were the first ones there, ready to get picked up and get carried off on this to go to the marina where the trip was going to take place. At 8:45, we had got our tickets. We were all set. We were waiting. The boat was going to take off at 9. This was a small boat. It was going to, take the passengers around. Now there were two different boats that were going on, two trips. One of them was going to do a 4-hour tour, so a half-day tour. The other was doing an 8-hour tour, a full-day tour. So as we got there, we got our tickets. We started going down the line, and they told those of us we were only doing the half day. If you're going on the half day tour, get on the boat to the left. If you're going on the full day, get on the boat to the right. So we just boarded onto the boat to the left, thought everything was going to be fine. Things were wonderful. Nothing seemed wrong whatsoever. 9 o'clock, as was stated, we were on the boat and the boat was taken out from the dock. We took off. Everything was fine. I remember sitting there next to my wife and looking off to the right side, seeing nothing but beautiful trees, seeing the sunlight. It was still in the morning, but everything was great. You could smell the fresh air. We knew that this was going to be an extremely enjoyable adventure that we were going to have, and all was great. And then 9:05, everything changed.
I'm
Didn't
so
see it
sorry.
coming at all. Didn't see it coming at all. The next thing I remembered, I was laying face down on the surface of a burning boat. I'd been knocked unconscious. The boat exploded. There was a fuel leak that occurred underneath where we were sitting, and there was no way to detect it at all. When I started to try to get myself up. I looked down at my left foot and I saw that my foot was just dangling, ankle bone out. I was bleeding all over the place. I had no idea where Maleka was. I was the only person on this boat still. As I was trying to just come to grips, what's going on, what's happening, I tried to push myself up off the deck, but I crumbled. I came right back down. The only thing that I could do was reach my arm out into some ridges on the surface of the boat and try to drag myself closer to the edge of the boat. My right leg was burning, and there was nobody else there. As I stated before, there was a second boat, and thank God that that boat wasn't too far away from where we were. Passengers from that boat saw everything that happened, and some of them were able to come over and pull me off of the boat because I passed back out before I made it off of that boat. I was in and out of consciousness as all this was happening. When I finally started to have any recollection of what was going on, I was there with some of these passengers, and all I could ask them is, "Where is Maleka? How was Maleka?" And they said that she was okay, that she was going to the clinic. It was chaotic. It was extremely chaotic. All I remember next was being placed on the back of a pickup truck on a piece of plywood, laying there as I was being carried to the clinic. And there was one other passenger who was with me from that second boat, and I was asking him, "How is she? How is she doing? Is she okay?" And he said, "We're going to go to the clinic and hopefully she's going to be fine." But he didn't know any different than I did. Once we got to the clinic, they brought a stretcher out. They had me on the stretcher and they rolled me into the clinic. And as they rolled me into the clinic, I could hear the moans and the yells and the screams from Maleka. And all I could say to myself was, "God, what's going on? I hope that my wife is okay." They wheeled me into a bay. They started giving me pain medication. And when the doctor comes in, I ask him, I'm not thinking about myself. How is my wife? How is she? I haven't heard, I haven't seen, I haven't spoken to her since we were sitting happily on that boat. The doctors didn't tell me anything. There was one doctor at this small clinic, and what he told me that it was myself and one other passenger that they were actually going to put on an air ambulance and fly to the good hospital. And my comment back to him was, "What about Maleka? Is she coming too?" They didn't answer me. The next thing I knew, I was getting moved from the bay in that clinic onto this airplane and being flown to Nassau, where the hospital was. I asked the doctors, "Well, what about Maleka? Is she coming behind me? Is she coming? Is there a second plane? Are you going to fly me here on this plane and then fly back to pick her up and bring her?" They didn't say anything. I get to the hospital in Nassau, and as soon as I get there, they see how bad I've been injured, and they start doing CAT scans and x-rays and say that they're going to put me into surgery. As I mentioned before, my foot was dangling and completely severed, and they were going to try to reattach that. That was the first thing that they were going to try to do. So I go straight into surgery. As I come out of surgery, I'm in ICU, and the doctors come in. And the first thing that I ask them is, "Where is Maleka? Is Maleka here?" These doctors leave out the room. They don't answer the question. And then 2 minutes later, they come back in. They tell me, "Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but Maleka didn't make it." Now, in my head, I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm thinking that they're saying, "Okay, please, God, please let them mean that Maleka didn't make it here yet because there was a problem with the airplane or that they couldn't get her back or she's en route." No, no, they said, "Mr. Jackson, she passed away." And at that point, as physically broken as I was, my heart was shattered.
My Lord, that's wow. I mean, I'm so sorry. that you had to go through that. Incredible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there though, because after that,
Yeah.
then, you know, people have to be notified. You have to get stabilized.
Yeah.
Like some other things had to happen. And then on top of losing your best friend, the love of your life.
Just
Wow.
just like that, I was in shock. I was physically already in shock. And but I knew that she was gonna be okay. And when they told me that, I didn't know how to process that.
Yeah. I can
And
imagine.
to make matters worse, and as you said, there was a lot going on at that point in time. This was the night of that third day that we were there. The next morning, I had to call my son and tell him, son, mommy isn't coming back home. He didn't know what happened by then. By then, the family that he was staying with, they knew what happened. Word had gotten back to the close family that she had passed away, but
Mm.
he didn't know that. And I had to try to calm my son down on the phone and break the news to him that his mother wasn't coming back. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do. He was 12 years old at the time. He's thinking mommy and daddy are just going on a vacation, that all is going to be fine. They do this already and have done it plenty of times before. And he's going to get some time with his cousins and his aunts and uncles. And then after a couple of days, come back and everything is going to be like it was.
Yeah.
But no, it didn't happen like that.
Yeah.
And just to add on to that, while I was still laying there in the bed in the Bahamas, as I stated early on, they tried to reattach my foot to my leg.
Hmm.
And at that point in time, didn't know it, but my foot had gotten infected. And
Mm.
so, in the midst of that, as I was laying in the hospital bed, I could see the EKG monitor that was over my head. And I saw all of my vitals, my blood pressure, my temperature, my heartbeat, my oxygen level, all go from green to yellow to red. And I laid there and praying to God. And I mean, I'm at my truest point of despair and the lowest point imaginable. I've
Mm.
already had my wife taken away from me. I'm physically broken. And it looks like I'm about to die right here. And I'm asking God, why? Why did this have to happen to us? Why did this have to happen, period? And at that point in time, I didn't think that I would even be here.
Mm.
So as in the midst of all of this, a lot of things were going on in the background. And just to fast forward, that next day, I was being flown from the Bahamas to a trauma unit in Florida. And as soon as I got there, some of my family had already arrived, and the doctors told my family that they had to do whatever they needed to do to ensure that I was alive. And at
Mm.
that point, they realized that the infection from my foot had been spreading through my body. And if they didn't go ahead and take my leg, that I would have died. And that was the beginning of a lot of surgeries that I had to endure over the course of about a week, just to still be alive.
Mm.
Because I was physically broken. As I mentioned, my left foot had to be amputated. My right foot was broken. I had second-degree burns down my leg, fractured vertebrae, fractured pelvis, broken collarbone. I was physically in, and like I said, I went in and out of consciousness 5 times during.
Mm.
So for me to even be in a state where I could be physically put back together was an accomplishment from those doctors to
Yeah.
be able to make the right decisions to allow me to still be here. But that's just a piece of it, because the emotional heartbreak, the mental piece that I've lost, spiritually, the struggles that I faced trying to come to grips with why this had to happen. It's been a great deal. And as you pointed out, Linda, this was 2.5 years ago. So it hasn't been an enormous amount of time. But if
Absolutely.
you imagine what it's like when you have life as you know it, it's pretty much just taken away from you completely. And then you're left there in fragments and as a shell of yourself, and you don't know what you're going to do. I was in such a state of despair that it could have really sent me down a different path. So
Absolutely.
it's truly a blessing for me to be here in the midst of what happened. So
I think you're to be commended because any bit of that could have taken you different into a different space. I mean, you unimaginable circumstances that you've had to endure, and then to be the strength for your son, you know, because praise God that he didn't lose both his parents that day. You know, I mean, I words cannot even express the sympathy that that I want to offer you, the empathy I want to offer you into everything that you've been through. And the fact that now you have turned that tragedy into the springboard that's going to help other people get through their tragedies, right?
right,
So,
right.
so tell us about Reborn Resilient. Where did that name come from?
So that name came from in the midst of, and I didn't realize it at the time, but after the accident, and as I was starting to recover, and when I say recover, I mean from the physical standpoint, from the emotional standpoint, all of these pieces of me that were starting to have to be rebuilt and be recreated
Yeah.
in a sense, and this may be sad, but the Tiran Jackson that was who I was before the accident is not the same person that I am now. Going through what I've gone through,
Yeah.
I'm actually a different version of myself, and
Mm,
I'll go into a little detail with that. And with all of the time and having to replay what happened and and understand that the life that I knew, as you stated before, I lost my best friend, my
yeah.
lover, the mother of my child, my business partner. I lost so much in that one moment that I didn't know who I was going to be or how to move forward. So it
Mm,
took a lot of steps that, as I stated, I wasn't really realizing it at the time, but I had to heal emotionally. I had to have the right perspective to go through what I needed to in order to physically get to a point where I could even walk again with the prosthesis. I had to have the right attitude and mindset. And there were things that I was doing, and I didn't realize it at that point in time. But in the midst of looking back and realizing my emotional growth, the resiliency that came in trying to take this setback and not let it just deter my life down a different path, a
mm,
worse path. I was fighting PTSD. I was fighting depression. And then I had the emotional challenge of trying to deal with a teenager who had lost his mom unexpectedly, suddenly, in a tragic and in a way that was known and seen by the world. And
yeah.
so to have to try to balance all of those pieces, we developed a level of resiliency through doing that. Resiliency is defined as the ability to bounce back after a tremendous setback or unexpected change. We went through an unexpected change and have not only used that as something to, or I'll say this, we've used it as a means of truly finding out what we're made of and ways in which we can touch and inspire other people.
Mm,
And when I was going through my emotional breakdowns, honestly, and in the midst of praying to God, I realized I couldn't go back to the life that I had before. I wasn't
mm,
going back to being an engineer. I wasn't going back to doing things exactly the same way it was when it was me and Maleka, because Maleka was no longer here. And and through that, I realized, like you said before, it's a blessing that both myself and Maleka weren't taken for
yeah.
the sake of my son. I came to realize that the motivation for me to try to strive and do well and get back on my feet had to do with the fact that God kept me here to raise our son.
Mm.
And and it's ironic, it's odd because I can remember back to a moment. It was about a year or so before the accident happened. And Maleka and I, we were here at our house in our basement, and we were there talking. We were watching a movie, and I don't remember how exactly it came up, but we had one of these what if conversations. And it's one of those what if conversations aren't things you really look forward to because they can create a sense of uncomfortableness. Uh,
Mm.
in the midst of that, the question was, well, what if something happens to me and I suddenly die? And in the midst of that, Maleka thought about it and she told me this. She told me, Tiran, I want you to not grieve for too long if something were to happen to me. I want
Mm.
you to be able to move on and move forward with your life. And she did give me a certain set of rules that she wanted me to keep in mind as I was, navigating out into that space. But the one thing that resonated and stuck was that she told me that I needed to do everything in my power to ensure that the only piece of her that was going to still be here on this earth was actually taken care of, and that was our son.
Your son
And
came.
so at that point, that was it. That was all I needed. So that was the motivation to make me say, okay, I need to be able to get myself together emotionally so I
Yeah.
can make sure I'm strong for him.
Yeah.
Get myself together physically so I can be there to support him in his sporting events and in just in life and being able to, make it as natural and normal as it could possibly be for him. I wanted to make sure that I was as strong as I could possibly be so he could be strong moving forward. Even from the professional standpoint, I was going to do something to not only create a legacy for her, but to ensure that he's well taken care of.
Yeah.
And as if I didn't have enough of a motivation to go out and try to do big things and make sure that we're taken care of, it was heightened to a whole new level after
Mm.
thinking through those things and realizing that this is what she would have wanted. This is
Yeah.
what I meant by that.
Yeah, I mean, your story and your son, raising. I lost my mom at 9, and my dad took on her 4 kids and two of his own, and ended up raising 5 of us of the 6. But I mean, to stand in that place, even if it's your child, to stand in that place and have to do both. My dad was my mom and my dad. People say, well, don't call him a mom, but you have to do some mothering too, because
Yeah.
kids need both. And so you have to make up for that. I applaud you for what you've done. I mean, how can we support Reborn Resilience? What can we do to help you in your mission to help others? How
So
can we
yeah.
do?
So as you stated, just a little bit briefly about Reborn Resilient. As I stated before earlier, now I realize part of what my purpose is here on this earth. I use my story and I use those steps that I mentioned to you earlier that I was going through as I was recovering to create essentially a blueprint to help others who are going through any challenge, any difficulty, any pain that they may be facing. If you think about it, we've all had to go through something and experience things. With COVID, it's changed the way that people think, that they operate, and just all the things that may be causing stress in our lives and making it difficult for us. So what I have done with this, as I stated, I found keys to my recovery, and I try to use that to help others recover through whether they've lost somebody or if they're going through the realization that physically they're going through an ailment or something that they think may be a major setback and don't know how they're gonna move forward. Anybody going through transition, anybody who is going through a divorce or job loss or trying to figure out what their purpose and destiny is.
Mm.
That's what Reborn Resilient is for those who need a bit of a push in order to heal. I like to use the term that based on what I've gone through, my purpose, Reborn Resilience purpose, is to help accelerate the healing and recovery process of those who don't know where they're going in life or who may be stuck or who may need to get some guidance and counseling through somebody who has truly experienced these type of tragedies and have overcome them. So that's one of the things. That's the main thing. If you or somebody that you know has gone through these things, or you see it in them, where they're just in this position where they don't know what their purpose is, where they don't know where they're going, where they're just maybe just stagnant with life and don't understand how they're going to reach that next level of progression, of
Mm,
moving forward. And I want to say this, not just living, but wanting to get to a point where they're thriving. Because I try
yeah,
to help people thrive and get to a
absolutely.
point where you're being the greatest version of yourself, because that's what I'm doing. Becoming and have become the best version of myself in the midst of going through this tragedy. So with that being the case, I use my experience to help others also do that. So
I love it.
purpose of Reborn Resilient, overcoming the obstacles, overcoming the adversity. We all have challenges in our lives, but sometimes we have to find the strength within, that resiliency to overcome those battles. As
Absolutely.
far as trying to how to support me, if you go to my website, it's rebornresilient.com. There you can see information as it relates to some of what I do. I do keynote speaking services. I do one-on-one motivational consulting, and help establish a blueprint for those who want um, to basically improve where they are in life. As
Yeah.
far as other responsibilities, workshop facilitation for groups, and just so you all know, I've got a book that's coming out within the next at the beginning of May is what it's looking like, where I go into some of the further details of my experience in the story and who Maleka was as a person, and also just what it's like coming out of the other end of that tragedy, and trying to make sure that I'm moving forward and use that to inspire others to move forward so they can be the best that they can be. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I did put your website in the chat for those in the comments for those who want to go ahead and connect with Tiran on his website, like get on his mailing list, like
yeah.
find out how we can support and further this engagement that he's doing. I think that if we can work together, we can definitely have some impact on making sure this story reaches those who need it most, because you're a blessing. I mean, you're a miracle, a blessing, to come out of that tragedy and to be, so there were how many people on that boat?
So on that boat, there were 10 passengers and there were two, the captain and his mate. So there were a total of 12 people on that boat.
Yeah.
As a result of the accident, three people were horribly injured. It was myself, one other person, and Maleka. And sadly, Maleka was the only casualty from that excursion and from that incident.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, so anyway, we can get this your story out, support your book when it comes out. Please reach back and make sure I have the link so I can pass it along.
we'll,
Yeah, I thank you for saying yes to we met in the most awkward way. I was getting ready to shut it down for the night, and something said one more interview, and it was you, and I was like, so I was there the whole time because I kept wondering, why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? And then you were my last interview, and I was like, okay, this is why I'm here. I'm here because I'm to help you put this story out so that people who need you can find you. I do appreciate your yes. I do appreciate you sharing your story with us. I love that you trusted me to be among the first interviews you did live across these internet. And
no
so,
problem.
any way I can support you, keep me in tune with what's going on. Give my love to Cameron. Uh, you
Will
know,
do.
just anything we can do to help you to get your story out and to help your book to get to as many people as possible. I put mine in the Library of Congress. I'm gonna tell you how to do that.
Okay, that's
It's
good.
libraries, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so it makes it available to anybody anywhere. And so I want to make sure I give you that information too. But what as your closing remark? anything you want to leave to tell people about resiliency?
Yeah, well, first off, we all have resiliency within us. We may not realize it, we may not know how strong or how tough we are or how we have to go through these difficult times until we're actually placed in them. I was at a point where, I could have been, my life could have been taken at three different points: when the boat exploded, when I was in the hospital in the Bahamas and my vitals went bad, after I went through all of these surgeries, and I was still here. And at that point, I realized I had to have a will to live, a will to thrive. And I had to put things in perspective in order to understand that I need to do these things in order to get back to not the life that I had before, but to life and have a not just a good quality life, but a great quality life. I
Yeah.
want to say that in the midst of all the tragedy that's happened, I've been rebuilt in a greater way, and so I've recovered physically from the accident. As I stated, I lost my leg, but I got into great shape. I started running 5Ks, which is something I'd never done before. I became someone who could swim pretty well with one leg, which is harder than you might think. But these are the type of things that once I started taking these steps to get to where I needed to be, I realized that there's more that I could do than what I thought I could do, and that's where that resiliency starts to come out. And we're going to have these setbacks in life. I've been able to find happiness and love again. I've been able to experience so many new things. I've been an entrepreneur in so many ways that have expanded beyond where my mindset was before. So I just want to say that for those of us who are going through challenges, keep in mind that things can get better. Everything that
Oh,
we
yeah.
face is a trial and tribulation, but you not only have to don't focus on the negative and the bad, but realize that, okay, God has put me through this for a reason, and be mindful and listen to what that purpose is. And you can come out the other side stronger, more resilient, and better in ways than you may have ever imagined.
I
So
love it. I love it. So my name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the business plug. Every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I come on with the business plugs mixer, and we bring guests like Tyran, if I'm gonna say his name right eventually, like Tyran, to tell about their stories, their businesses, what they're doing in life. I hope you will reach out. I will put his links in the description here and on Facebook, on LinkedIn as well. But I want you to reach out to him. You see, I've tagged him, so make sure you tag him. Make sure you connect and just reach out to him. Let's show him some love and see how we can help him to help other people who really desperately need this story in their lives in order for them to come out of their despondency. So I think it's a worthwhile mission. I think right now, especially people dying of COVID, people have people who are dying unexpectedly from the disease, and they need to understand how to get back. And so I think this is timely. I think what you're doing is remarkable. I think you're a remarkable man. Awesomeness. I kudos to you for the tenacity that you have shown forth and how you are just moving forward. And we will stay tuned. So if you'll hold on, I'm going to say good night to everyone, and we'll see you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time here on the Business Plug. Have a good evening.
thank you.